All right, so we have made it underwater. I don't know. Do we take a kind of submarine kind of thing or an elevator? How do you think we get underwater, Cassia, down to this colto mine farm thing?
Part of me wants to see like a little, I forget what they call it in episode one, but kind of like a Knights of the Old Republic version of
Mm-hmm.
what Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Jar Jar used to go through the core. Maybe you could see that, but my guess is it would be kind of just like an elevator, kind of like maybe like what you see, like how they drill oil in the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think.
Yeah, it's the Gungan Bongo is the name of that submarine in episode one. That would be really fun to have some sort of little like submersible vehicle that we could go down on. I don't know, but I think it's probably just going to be an elevator, maybe for time constraints. Although having maybe it could be like a glass type elevator so we can see like actual like the ocean floor as we're getting down and closer to it. That could be kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think they would want to show the Star Wars version of them mining for Kolto, or it could mirror, kind of like sometimes like what technology, like the effects it has on nature. And
Hmm.
it's not usually a good thing. It's usually, kind of usually always a bad thing for the environment. So maybe they could
Hmm.
kind of showcase that. So.
Yeah, and in the game, it does have an adverse reaction to the environment because there's a big giant sea monster there, and it has kind of these like sonic wave sonar things that it's sending out, and it's making all of the miners go crazy down there, right? So they're almost like zombies, kind of down in this underwater level. What do you think in a film? Do we get like these spooky horror story vibes going on, or is it something different, or kind of along those lines? What do you think about that?
I'm not as interested by spooky horror vibes, like kind of like saying like, "Oh no, people are going crazy down here." I'm not as interested in that. I'd
Hmm.
rather be kind of be more of like eerie, kind of like that's a huge shark, but like kind of the takeaway is like rather than like not like where you have to kill the crate dragon,
Hmm.
but you can just like kind of let something bigger than you remain and be in awe of it and respect it. I kind of just want a little bit of a mirror there. But I don't know, maybe more people are kind of into like the kind of the spooky horror story vibe, kind of like inspired by like video games and zombies and I don't
Hmm.
know, maybe Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I don't know about having them be zombies. I think what could be interesting, and then you could still play it up with this big sea creature and sort of the disruption of nature, is that maybe this sea creature has crushed in a part of the mine, or a part of like the access tunnel or something, and has trapped some miners there. And it could be any sort of combination of Selkath miners or Republic or Sith. Maybe it's interesting if you have a group of kind of all three of them, are trapped in this thing, and that becomes almost kind of a side quest for some members of the party to go and help and get them rescued back up to the surface.
That could work. Huh. That'd be cool to see.
Yeah, and that way you're still getting kind of some stuff with the sea creature. You're kind of building tension, and it's going to lead the underwater area to be really atmospheric, which is kind of what um, I see for that particular area. What about you? Do you have any kind of film inspirations or kind of feel or setting for what this underwater mining operation is going to look like?
I don't know if I have any specific inspirations, but I think just like if the surface is light
Hmm.
and kind of airy and dreamlike and magical, like it's kind of like maybe it's because I was recently, like on a vacation, but like the ocean, the farther down you get, you don't have to go that far down. It gets cold,
Hmm.
and like dark, so kind of just showcasing that like on a cinematic scale would be cool. And like where the surface is light, it could be dark, and
Hmm.
rather than airy, and dreamlike, it could be kind of dark and eerie and like kind of like ooh, kind of like. But like for me, like the more interesting thing is uh, the tensions of the Republic and Sith, and like
Hmm.
kind of like seeing if they can get what they need in the right amount of time without like kind of like having a whole lot of the war effort be jeopardized. But maybe like a reason why Malik is able to find them, not just because he's kind of like, I've been to all these places before. I have all the KOTOR,
Right.
postcards, that I
Yeah.
collected when I went on a road trip finding the star map in the first place. Is like maybe like it's kind of like the most high profile world they probably went to. And like
Hmm.
maybe it's just like they're like, that's literally Bastila, and I'm pretty sure that is a Jedi guy who could be Revan. Maybe he's not dead, you know?
Yeah.
And um yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah. I think that, yeah, kind of that tension build up on the top, the surface level of Manaan is probably more interesting, but I do really think that it's going to look visually very cool. Kind of the film inspiration I drew for this section of the film is Alien, just because it's really atmospheric. It's kind of quiet and closed quarters, right? It feels very claustrophobic almost. So I think that that sort of feeling is going to be good, and I think I don't like I said I don't know that I think that they're like they've gone crazy from this thing, but I think that there should be some sort of adversary, something down there that could be causing us a little bit of grief and just kind of amping up the feeling of being very vulnerable down under this big vast ocean. So
Yeah, definitely for sure. Where would you see the star map like being? Like, do you think it would be on the ocean floor? Do you think it was always on the ocean floor? Where would you want to see? What do you want to see?
yeah, so in the game, if you play it, it's on the ocean floor, and you get to put on like an awesome like scuba dive like
That you
suit
move
kind of thing.
so slow in. My goodness.
Yeah, and you feel yeah, you're gonna run out of air because that thing goes so slow. And you run across this big fish, I guess, basically, that is kind of blocking the path. But I don't know. I don't buy that that's where this thing's going to have been since ancient times. So what I think that there is I think maybe we have to go out onto the seafloor to get to this place. Maybe not in a big full blown scuba suit like you do in the game. Maybe just one of those little breathing apparatuses that they use when they are going down into Gungan City. But I think maybe you kind of go across, and then there's like an underwater cavern you can kind of get into and come up, and then just the way that the air pocket is, like there's breathable air in there, and that's where the star map is.
That's what I was kind of thinking.
Yeah, because if you have it on the seafloor, then it's tricky to figure out how many characters you would have out there at this thing, how you would find it, and how you would kind of jot down the things that you're learning. But I think having kind of like an underwater cavern would be really cool, because then you could adorn it with some ancient, like
Yeah.
kind of like cave painting type things, or different art, or maybe like some altars in there, or something like that.
Yeah, dressed up a little bit like this might be because I have a Pirates of the Caribbean candle, kind of going right now from uh, Kravchenko Crafted. It's the Caribbean Cove flavor,
Hmm.
kind of smoky, version of the kind of the water, the scent of that ride. But I don't know if you're like a big Pirates of the Caribbean fan, but like kind of like the treasure room at the end,
Hmm.
like the ambiance, it's kind of spooky but kind of ancient. It's cool, not quite scary, but a little like, you're kind of like it's an adventure, kind of
Hmm.
like the vibe of that. Because if it were like the game, you can't really get a whole lot of detail on an ocean floor with the water. You can't
Right.
really just like send a drone and be like, okay, tell us what you think. You can't really see it that well. So I
Hmm.
think if it's like, what if like Bastila and Revan like have to go and like a Kotor bongo? Is that what you said it was called?
Yeah, it is called
Mm-hmm.
the Gungan Bongo is
Yeah,
what
and then
the
yeah, they kind of go through that, and then they kind of like it's a little bit of like a treasure cave, and they kind of see it and like maybe you could have a little moment there, like I don't know. It's
yeah.
and like kind of like I don't know, maybe it's like the connection between 2 points is a line and it's like the stars like make a line and like I don't know. It just reminds me of Across the Stars. I don't know. So,
Yeah, no,
yeah.
I think that that would be good, and I think in terms of storytelling, I think you could probably almost leave like Jolie maybe back on the surface, dealing with his side quest, and kind of send Revan and Bastila and maybe Karth or someone down underneath, maybe uh, Jolie, or maybe you find out from some of the Republic people that you're interacting with that they'd seen this cavern, but they were never able to to get out to it far enough or something like that. So
Yeah. And I think, like, Karth, because he's part of the trio, but, like, Baston and Revan, they're Jedi. He's not. And, like, they literally have, like, a force bond. In the new canon, I guess you could call it, like, a force dyad. And,
mm-hmm.
like, so maybe, like, he's definitely part of the trio. They definitely care about him, but, like, it could really play on his paranoia because, like, sometimes, like, maybe he just feels like he gets like shut out, and like Bastila is kind of lying to him, and Revan was literally Revan, and I think Karth is going to have to overcome his issues with trusting people. That's going to
Mm-hmm.
be his overall arc. So,
Yeah,
and I think like it reaches its high point on Manaan, and it kind of he's kind of broken. I think on the Leviathan.
yeah. I think maybe that's why I feel like it would be a good idea to have some sort of like trapped minor situation that Karth can sort of take over and be a good soldier and help them get out. So he has kind of a moment of triumph before we get to the
Yeah,
Leviathan.
show
Just
him helping the Republic.
yeah, because as you kind of go through the game, I mean, like you said, he's basically he's more or less one of kind of this big trio of the characters, but he's almost always like the third wheel of the characters. So to
Yeah,
give him something to do and to be triumphant over, I think would be good.
yeah, definitely for sure. Uh, cause like I'm like, oh yeah, like Karth does. I feel like he was like so critical, like on the Underspire and on Terrace,
Hmm.
and definitely on Kashyyyk, but he could kind of just feel like he was kind of being cut off, even though he's doing important stuff, and uh, kind of looking forward to the third film. Like you kind of have to rebuild that. And I mean, as we kind of talk about our overview and getting into the nitty gritty of the third film, like I have a fun idea to kind of showcase that Karth is gonna have to learn to trust people, and I think it'd be kind of fun. So,
Hmm. And I think you could definitely own Manon, because I think in the game it depends on what order you do the planets in, but I think that this is about time for Karth to find out that his son is still alive. So,
yeah,
if he's dealing with that, but then is thrust into a situation where he has to, you know, prove himself useful and save these lives, to kind of put that on the back burner for right now.
yeah. I mean, his son, I believe, is force sensitive, so maybe I don't know. He could be on Manon. That could be interesting, or maybe it makes more sense that he finds him on Korriban. I'm not opposed to him being on Manon like Dustil Onasi.
Hmm.
I'll
Well,
have to double check the name of my fan cast for Dustil. Um,
yeah,
but
because I think you just find out that he's on Korriban, and I think maybe you could do that, maybe in some of the espionage stuff, maybe if you're stealing something from the Sith, maybe he sees his son's name on there or something like that.
Yeah, and just kind of like he has to find out that his son is alive, and um, maybe that like people can be saved, like, and then like if he can kind of save his son,
Hmm.
he could he could kind of be like, oh, maybe Revan was, redeemed and can become a better person, and maybe the same could happen with Bastila. Maybe people can become better, and I can believe in friendship and family and found family.
Hmm. Yep, definitely. And that sort of leaves us with one more thing we have to figure out here underneath the depths of the sea here. So we've got this giant sea monster in the game that you sort of have to navigate your way past. What do you think about that in terms of the film? We just had the crate dragon on Tatooine. Is it too much too soon to have another large beast, or do you think you could have it and just deal with it differently? So on Tatooine, you basically have to slay this dragon, but maybe there's a more peaceful solution to dealing with this sea creature.
Um, I'm for learning and peace, and not killing things all the time. Um, so have the massive, like, what's it called again? Is it like a massive shark or something? I was gonna call it a Gizka shark, and then I was like, that's not it. But it's like kind of like a massive like shark on Manaan, and I think like you don't need to kill it, but I think like just kind of be like in awe of it and be like, we don't have to fight it, like, like
Hmm.
we just have to respect it. That's what I'm for. Are you for harpooning the little shark?
No, and I just looked it up. It's called a Firaxan shark. So,
Yeah, okay.
um,
Um,
but
yeah.
no,
Oh,
I would like to have a more peaceful resolution with that. I actually just today, before recording this, I watched an episode of The Rebels, and it's the first time we see the space whales. And Ezra has kind of a moment where he's looking into the eyes of one of this thing, and they kind of are able to feel each other and sense each other. I think maybe you could do something along those lines and figure out, because in the game it's basically some machinery that's uh, tricking this guy up, right? It's like it's messing up the sonic wavelengths or whatever, and that's what's causing this big creature to get agitated. So maybe you have
yeah.
some sort of thing like that, and maybe you're able to set it free or turn off whatever's causing it, the trouble or something like that. But definitely a peaceful resolution here for the shark in this part of the film for me.
Yeah, and one thing I was kind of thinking of is like maybe for Manon, maybe the constellation could be space whale, or it could be like named after like the Phyrexian shark or something. Like,
Hmm.
I don't know, because like have a little bit of an aquatic theme, and maybe on Tatooine it could be like crate dragon themed, because like dragons are kind of big in the mythology of Tatooine, and maybe on Kashyyyk it's like a tree,
Hmm.
or and on Dantooine it could be Alderaan or something. I don't know.
Right.
What would you kind of want the constellations to be?
Yeah, I think that would be a really interesting take to have it be something that's kind of specific to that planet. I think that would be really cool. And I'm trying to think if we've ever really seen like Star Wars constellations or anything like that. In the Mortis, I know there's a bunch of artwork and stuff that people have done that kind of will have some kind of constellation themes, but I don't remember seeing anything like super specific. But yeah, that would be really fun to have like, yeah, like this Firaxan shark like as a constellation, something like that. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah. And also, side note, I forgot to bring this up, and we'll bring it up again in the future, but Kit Young would be my fan cast for Dustil Onassi. So he's in Shadow
Oh,
and
okay.
Bone, and he is the character who is good with a revolver.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a good one. Yeah. So if everyone listening out there, be thinking of your fan cast for a Dustle for when we get to that one. See if you can come up with some good picks for there. But yeah, I think Sea Monster, Peaceful Resolution. We found the star map, and yeah, I think that kind of wraps it up for Manaan. Before we do, we'd like to thank everyone who has been listening to the podcast on Apple Podcasts. So make sure you get subscribed there. And if you are loving the Ebon Hawk podcast, we'd really appreciate if you took a few minutes and left us a 5-star review, because that really helps, get the podcast up the charts and do all the iTunes things that, helps us get going and do more cool stuff. So I appreciate anyone who does that. And yeah, that for Manaan, I think that kind of wraps it up. Was there anything else that we needed to touch on for Manaan?
I think when it comes to Manaan, you kind of just want to have the political situation. Let Jolie kind of have his, I was going to say side quest, but maybe if he just kind of has to do a trial, maybe Karth could kind of stay behind with him, and then you get the Force Dyad kind of finding the star map,
Mm-hmm.
And then it's kind of maybe you kind of just are maybe we did pull that off, people are that kind of Tatooine kind of started off, people are it's on a road trip, Tatooine, you're yeah, we had a good, road trip going on, Terrace, it started off shaky. Dantooine, we got our calm back, and then, Kashyyyk was awesome. So Tatooine's going to be more the same, and then maybe it's kind of Tatooine is kind of where the wrench kind of gets thrown into things, and it's okay. And then Manaan is kind of just a little bit more high stakes and worse, but then they think they pull it off, and then it's I think we pulled it off, and then it's then the Leviathan happens,
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, that's going to be really fun to see. And I think something else that just came to mind, if we happen to have Juhani with us as we're getting to Manaan, that could be interesting too, right? Because, she had some, flirtation there with the dark side, and to be kind of in this, weird environment of the Republic versus Sith, I think would be a good test of, trusting her to be in this situation.
Yeah, definitely. Because part of me is keeping her as kind of the contact for the Jedi on Dantooine. Maybe her and Bastila are friends, and kind of have her be revealed as the Jedi to rescue the Ebon Hawk crew on the Leviathan. But maybe, I don't know, maybe you could bring her in earlier, but I'm kind of partial to her coming on the Leviathan.
Yeah, just a super interesting part of the game. It's probably one of my favorite parts of the game to play through, and I think that seeing it on film would be extra awesome too. So, all right, well, I think that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Thanks for joining us.
And you can find us on Instagram at Ebon Hawk Podcast.
And if you want to connect with me, I can be found on Instagram at astro_droid_. On Patreon, the link is in our Instagram bio, or you can find it at www.patreon.com/EbonHawkPodcast. The Ebon Hawk can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, as well as everywhere else that Anchor podcasts are distributed. Subscriptions, reviews, and shares help us out.
Our intro and outro themes were composed by Alistair Shorerman at alistairsounds.wixsite.com/alistairsounds. Our transition music was composed by Christian Walker at christianwalkermusic.com. This episode of the Ebon Hawk Podcast has been brought to you by Nicky Dog from Patreon. May the Force be with you. We will be back soon. Bye for now.